Hello and welcome to Beyond a Buzzword. I'm your host, Selena Jasmine, and today we'll be talking about the business of influencer marketing and how it's changed the way that brands interact with their consumers. Today on the panel, we have these three amazing ladies. We've got Sara Koonar, who is the co-founder of Platform Media, Krystin Lee, who is a lifestyle blogger of Suburban Faux-Pas, as well as a social media director. And we have Krystle Ng-A-Mann, who is a corporate lawyer turned full-time blogger. She's also known as Dine Fash. So ladies, I'm so excited to dive into this content with you guys. But first, let's get started with a little bit more about what you guys do and how you got started.
So I have been blogging, Instagramming for over 6 years now. I actually started the blog as a means to further my career in a public relations agency. So I saw that more and more we were beginning to put money aside for, bloggers or influence relationships. We saw this whole digital media starting to evolve, and I actually wanted to become sort of the go-to person in the office who could speak intelligently about this and, almost kind of become the resident expert.
Well, I started Platform Media, which is a boutique social media agency that we specialize in influencer marketing about 2 years ago. And so now we represent Canadian influencers across the country, and we like to actually call them storytellers. So people who have really thoughtful blogs, who do really high quality photography, and we work with them to get them branded content opportunities. So that's how I work with the influencers and the brands as their agent.
Sara's my manager.
Yeah, welcome.
I got into it about a couple years ago. As you mentioned before, I was a lawyer. I still am a lawyer. I just don't practice anymore. So I was practicing for about 7 years when I started. So it initially started for me as having a creative outlet or something where I could actually channel that creativity because I couldn't use a lot of that at my day job. There was not really a lot of opportunity to be creative in law. So it kind of grew from there, and it took off a lot quicker than I expected it to. And I guess the opportunity was there for me to do it full time, so I took the leap.
So how do you maintain authenticity when working with specific brands?
Being true to yourself and really representing yourself and not misleading anybody. Part of that is you always have a choice. You don't have to work with every brand that comes your way. And in fact, it's not a good idea to do that either because, that speaks to authenticity.
I think sometimes brands forget that a piece of influencer content, branded content, is very different from an ad. In an ad, they would tell the model to hold the product, to smile at the camera. That doesn't necessarily work when you're working with an influencer. Maybe it's a photo that's a little bit more authentic to them, like they're using the product. I think that I'm constantly kind of reminding the brands about that difference. And the more authentic the image is, the more authentic the blog post is, or the video, or whatever piece of content they're doing, really helps it sell it more to their audience than just, kind of following the steps that a model would.
This is something that I, really like to invest a lot of my time in. The go-to question is, is it something I've used? Is it in the house? Have I organically mentioned it? And then something I've always brought from sort of my marketing PR background is anytime you ever worked on a client, you sort of have this ideal demographic that you built out. What does, your girl look like? How old is she? What is she probably doing for a living? How much is she making? What is something that is really going to speak to her? And kind of having this, you can even give them a name. Is Beth going to be someone who's really going to want to invest in this product? And is it something that you really could see her picking up off the shelf, or is she going to go and hit add to cart?
The FTC has gotten much more involved with enforcing proper disclosure on social media. How do we think that this has affected authenticity? And most importantly, how has this landed with our consumers?
I think it's a bit of a tricky question. So obviously things are going more in the way of full and complete disclosure and being completely transparent. I think that's definitely necessary, not only from a legal perspective, but in general.
And a lot of times it's, I think it goes back again to working with brands, maybe products you already use. No one knows their audience better than the influencers. And I think that the most successful campaigns are the ones with the brands that really give them a chance to kind of mold the campaign. Yeah. I think it goes to more of the mass marketing campaigns where there's like 100 influencers all posting the same image on the same day, and there's no wiggle room at all into what you can do. And those campaigns are great for awareness, but I think the best campaigns that really like ignite emotion and get engagement are ones where they let the influencer be part of the process of creating what that campaign is going to be.
The amount of content that you're putting out, that there's a healthy balance. You definitely don't want to overdo it. You certainly can, but I think that level of authenticity is you're slowly going to see it decrease.
So there are so many different platforms that you can use to promote your brand or to generate sales. In your opinion, what do you think is the best platform to generate sales with brands?
I mean, I can see where the most sales are happening, and it's definitely Instagram and YouTube. I think blogs were a little bit iffy there for a bit because think about what you do when you go online. You usually go on a social network first. So it used to be that people were Googling things. So search engine optimization and search traffic was really big. And so the blogs were really big. And then now people go on and they search through things, on their Instagram or their Twitter. I search for news on my Twitter, whereas I used to search for news on Google. So we always try to keep a balance, but I do find Instagram is probably where the most money exchanging hands and the most advertising is happening, but you don't know the future. There could be something amazing that comes out tomorrow.
True.
So it's all about, making sure that you're spreading yourself out there.
So on the topic of authenticity, how do you feel that long-term relationships with brands impact your audience?
I think it's a multi-purpose beneficial relationship for so many parties, but I think first and foremost, your readers become accustomed to seeing, if it's the product or the service. It becomes weaved in through your content throughout the year. I also think because it's typically something that's going to keep coming up, you're more inclined as an influencer to organically speak about it because you live and you breathe it. Because it becomes this working relationship, you want to give back and put as much into the relationship as the brand puts value into you. So it becomes this mutually beneficial partnership for both parties. And another avenue, if you will, that you can add into the equation is that your audience is now getting used to seeing this on an organic level, but a sponsored level. But because it becomes something that they're accustomed to, they engage with it all the same.
In an article, it said that 76% of brands believe that ROI is very difficult to track. Is this, I can already tell Sarah's like, is this a misconception?
Total misconception.
Heard it first. You heard it first.
I was like, when I saw that stat, my mind was blown because I've worked in print, I've worked in broadcast, I can see the other types of advertising. And I think influencer marketing is the most detail you can get. Like you're like right there. It's almost peer-to-peer marketing. So you're getting the feedback from your audience. People who use affiliate links, you can tell exactly how many items were sold from a certain influencer. You can see if people saved a photo, so that's really an intent to purchase. Everything that's available on Instagram Insights, in YouTube Insight, Facebook, and Twitter, it's so detailed, and I think that misconception only shows that a lot of brands don't understand how the reporting works.
I mean, the part that I would challenge is, to be honest, I'd say about 75% of the partnerships I deal with, you do it, that's it, that's great. Nobody even bothered to follow up to say, how did it go? What was the success like? Can you share any insights? I don't feel like a lot of marketers or brands are still closing that gap. I think they just don't. And it's shocking because you wouldn't sink $200,000 into TV and not ask, how did it go?
Right, and Sarah, you actually brought up something that I was gonna ask you, using influencers as an afterthought. If you could speak a little bit more about that.
I think it's because it's new and it tends to be that digital budgets are planned last, that the influencers are the very last thing people think about. But if you go back to the brand ambassador, and some brands are doing this, and we're seeing that they're using the influencers in the ad campaign. They're using the influencers in the window. They're using the influencers in the commercials, and then it ties into their posts in the end. And I think it's such an amazing way to use influencers. They're familiar faces. They are, celebrities in their own way, but they're also real people. I think when people look at a celebrity, they don't necessarily feel like I can relate to that person. But when they see an influencer, we're seeing influencers on the covers of magazines. So they're seeing them and they're going, I could be her, I could be that, and that relates to me.
Incorporating influencers into that online conversation is such an integral part. But I also just think there's still mass amounts of misinformation and miscommunication about the investment and how much it costs, or even how it stacks up to other mediums. It still is quite reasonable compared to other investments in media that you would still be making. But for some reason, there's just this jaded perception.
So Instagram Stories, that feature has really helped influencers, and it's been a huge benefit in a lot of ways in terms of working with brands. How have Instagram Stories really impacted that kind of change?
I'm telling brands a lot of the time, really pay attention to Instagram Stories because as an Instagram user, I find myself watching Instagram stories for like 15 minutes and then maybe just scrolling through a few photos on my feed. I'm really into them, and what I like about them is they're so authentic. I think Instagram stories is such an awesome way to put your personality out there, and the engagement on them is incredible. We've seen sometimes Instagram stories get more engagement than an Instagram post. So it's definitely an area where I think the future of Instagram is in the stories.
What does the future of influencer marketing look like?
Okay, I hear this every day. So my analogy is like, before influencers, they used celebrities to sell products, right? And then with the introduction of social media, regular people were able to become celebrities, and they just, instead of calling them celebrities, they called them influencers. The social media is here to stay, and so long as there's social media, there are social media celebrities, influencers, and this social media influencer marketing is going to continue.
I mean, the age-old, favorite marketing practice is word-of-mouth marketing. How do you put a dollar value as a brand on somebody raving about your product, whether it's, two girls going for coffee and chatting about an experience, or it's an influencer sharing that story. And it's being able to harness something, that has always been a tried, tested, and true. And I just think it's a really exciting time for brands to dip their toe in the water and find this group of people that best suit and can speak to their brand.
Well, I hope everybody watching this video has learned as much as I have from you three today. Thank you so much for all of this information and for being here. Thank you ladies so much.
Thank you.